So hello everyone, this is Deepak Parekh. I would like to thank you for joining this interesting webinar. And I believe this would be able to add a lot of value to all those who want to understand a little bit about how the pulses sector is evolving. And I would also take this opportunity to thank all of you for joining us. And as you know that Honeybee and Know Your Commodity has been in forefront of working with coming with new value addition in form of the data, information, insight, policy interpretation, and all of them together. Today, we are here to talk about four commodities. So we'll be talking about Pigeon, we'll be talking about Matpe, we will be talking about chickpeas, and we will be talking about lentils. First two commodities are important for a very simple reason that actually we know that we are in Kharif season and uh, in next few months we would be seeing the harvest, and that would impact how the prices are shaping up today. The other two commodities, which happens to be the chickpea as well as lentil, they're also important while they'll be sown in Rabi, and this is where what would be the sowing intention going forward is important. All these four key pulses are important for a very simple fact that actually we are entering a festive season. In fact, generally the festive season starts 45 days before the Diwali. This time it seems that the demand creation has been a little bit delayed, and this has created a little bit of uncertainty in the market. And at the same time, the government policies has also evolved and changed. I would request my colleague Neeraj to just confirm if I'm audible. So Neeraj, am I audible?
Yeah, we can hear you, sir. Loud and
And
clear.
you can see me as well?
Yeah, perfect, sir.
Okay, awesome. So now what we'll be doing is that I'll be starting my presentation, and that would give you a little bit of insight about what we are talking about. So welcome to this Outlook of Pulses market session, where we'll be talking about, as I said, four key commodities. Let's start with Pigeon P. Pigeon P has been in discussion for various reasons, right? Because actually, I myself has been someone who has been talking about this for a pretty long time. Past two season has been where actually I've been pretty accurate. This year, I would say that definitely there has been a little bit of deviation for a very simple reason. In Jan itself, based on the supply and demand, I've estimated a price range of 89 to be low and 140 to be high for Desi chickpea, for Desi pigeon pea. Now, in the mid of June, I think around 23rd or 24th of June, we have seen it peaking to where 128 was the Kulam market, and you add up a couple of rupees for the mandi price, you add up with 131 to 132 rupees per kg, which was 10 rupees below what I've predicted for the season. But I was thinking that it will be peaking in September because that is where actually the maximum demand comes in, and we are already sitting in on 25th of September, and we have seen that post July, after the imposition of the stock limit and various factors, the Pigeon pea prices has been going down drastically. While I don't see that that supply and demand was one of the reason, or I was not able to find even the logical reason behind that. But the fact of the matter is that the Pigeon pea prices are low, and actually they have dipped pretty decently since end of June. We also seen that the prices are currently like 18 to 20% below what they were last year. And while this year the crop was a little bit better than what it was last year, but still, I don't believe that the difference has been so huge because we were having hardly any buffers. But having said that, let's get into it. Yes, I would concede that actually what I was talking about seems like to be difficult to be reached this year. But nevertheless, as an analyst, you take a shot, and based on whatever you have understood, you come with a number. And I always believe analysts need to stick his neck out. Right or wrong, only time can tell. We are not I would say astrologers, we are just data scientists. Now when we see typically second production estimate for this year, in 2024-25, we are seeing that the Karnataka, while the acreage has increased substantially, from roughly a million hectares, it has gone all the way up to 1.56 million hectares. Still, there have been, because of untimely rain, uh, some losses in the yields, losses in the overall what has been already cultivation, we have seen that there has been waterlogging, and we find that while we were estimating that just a few months back, a month and a half back, the numbers to be very high for Karnataka, doesn't seem that it would be very high, but definitely it is more than the 5-year average, and it is more than even 22-23 and 23-24. So we are looking at roughly 0.93 million tons coming from Karnataka. Maharashtra is second with 0.71. Uttar Pradesh 0.23, and Uttar Pradesh, you've seen that actually it has improved over what it was last year, and same is with the Maharashtra as well. Gujarat, we have seen a little bit of dip because in Saurashtra region there have been untimely rain and there was flooding also. So we would see a little bit of dip from previous year in Gujarat. Jharkhand is doing very well, and Jharkhand is luckily also have the climate which has positively impacted the crop of pigeon pea, and we'll see close to 50,000 tons more coming out of from there. Other state also, because of the high prices, they have increased their acreage. So when I look at the total number of production, I'm seeing like close to 0.4 million metric tons or 4 LMT, higher than what we have predicted for last year. So last year we have predicted 2.7, and before that 2.9. So if you see that after a pretty long time, we are seeing a reversal where the overall production of pigeon pea would increase in comparison to previous year. And now talking about other origins, so Myanmar and Africa. Myanmar, we are seeing there has been a struggle because there have been a flooding and Mekong River basin has been flooded twice. In fact, and that is one of the reasons where the central provinces of Myanmar, where you find that pigeon pea is being grown, it has been having some challenges. Similarly, we have also seen that Africa, because of La Nina, there would be some impact. And in fact, Tanzania, the government has already talked about that they might be looking at bad weather for cultivation, and they're asking farmers to grow crops which are shorter in duration. And hence, in both the overseas origin from where predominantly you get pigeon pea, that is Myanmar and East Africa, typically Tanzania, we have believed that the crop will be shorter. But still, the sowing has not started. This season is just ending there. So it is too early to predict, but still we believe that it would be lower than the what it was in the current year. So overall availability for India, we are looking at roughly 3.9 billion metric tons for 24-25 when it comes to pigeon pea. Now let's understand a little bit of supply and demand. So when we see supply and demand, we started 23-24 with very low carry. In fact, roughly 50,000 was the only carry. Production was also lower as compared to previous year, around 2.7. And imports were high for sure because actually, you find the later part of this year, we have Sudan emerging as one of the large exporter, which generally exports 25 to 30,000 tons. They've ended up exporting close to 1 LMT, that is 1 lakh metric tons of pigeon pea. So that has enabled overall production number to be import number to be high. And we have seen that Myanmar has also contributed pretty substantially. We are seeing a little bit challenge coming from Mozambique and Tanzania. Tanzania, what initial expectation was 1.9 LMT. It seems like because of new way of procurement, at the same time the logistical issue, by end of October, when we're actually we end this marketing season, we would be not having 1.9 LMT coming from Tanzania. They would be having some carryover, which could be taken care of in the next marketing year. Same with Mozambique. Mozambique, as you know, that there are challenges. The challenges initially started with some issues with the money laundering cases being put in, and some consignment was stopped. And even if you talk today, not too many containers have come in. Logistics is the issue. One big bulk vessel has come with 33,000 metric tons of pigeon pea, including both the red and the white variety. Other than that, in the pipeline also, if you see there is not much. Around 25 to 30,000 metric tons is what visibility is, which could come before Diwali. On the supply side, if we see that in this year it was 3.74. Now coming to 24-25, definitely we are seeing upside. As I said that actually while we are having challenges with the weather, but still the production would be on a higher side. So I am looking at close to additional 4 LMT of production in India. So that would, I say, that improve a little bit of situation on the supply side. Similarly, we'll be having a little bit lesser imports because one thing is that, as I said, other origins are having a little bit of challenge in production. At the same time, our own crop is better than what it is, and there has been for sure a lot of demand destruction. So if you see consumption from 2022-23 and 2023-24, there is close to a million metric tons which has just evaporated. Now, where that has gone? It has gone in 3 areas. One is that actually this substitution by yellow peas. Now, how much that number would be? It could be anywhere between 3 to 5%. Secondly, we have also seen in the dal, there is substitution with masoor also. So you'll see that when I'm talking about lentils or red lentils or masoor, that there has been a shift of demand from pigeon pea to masoor in certain parts of India, and that has also led to reduction in the overall consumption in 23-24. And the third part is that there is just a destruction, no replacement. People have stopped uh, tour and they are not even substituting it with any other pulses. While again going to 24-25, I believe there would be some carryover of that where actually demand destruction, not all the demand would come back again. Specifically those who have moved to Masoor or those who have to move to yellow peas, they might not be inclined again to come back to the consumption level of 22-23. And this is where you see that with supply of 4.18 million metric tons and 3.94 million metric tons as consumption, you'll have end up with a ending stock of 0.21 million metric ton. And as I said, 24-25, we'll have a little bit of carry. So, I believe the government would eventually enter, and they might already be doing it. Some market, they're already having these tenders. So, with the state government, central government, and other private players, you would be having carryover of roughly 2.8 LMT. Now let's understand what are the key points impacting the market. And this is, I always say that I love to stick my neck out. I could sometimes end up being totally wrong, but that doesn't stop me, to believe in what I think I should be talking about. And this is where, if you see 24-25, Tamil Nadu, Bihar, Chhattisgarh, Andhra Pradesh, they would be doing substantially better than the last year when it comes to productivity. Karnataka, Gujarat, and Maharashtra has some serious yield issue due to flooding. But as you see, know that in Karnataka and Maharashtra, there has been increase in the overall acreage. So we might end up having a little bit of better than previous year productivity. But yes, even with the high acreage, we are not seeing that actually there will be substantial increase in production. At least when we talk about Karnataka and Maharashtra, Gujarat, as I said, there would be reduction, and the rest of the state would add up, which has led to increase of close to 4 LMT of additional productivity this year. Now, coming to Myanmar, as I said, the crop is shorter and the lower than the previous year for sure. Central provinces are having issues. Now, coming to Africa, the crop expected to be again shorter because of various reasons, as I explained, there are concerns in Tanzania and Mozambique. One more thing in Mozambique, maybe or even Tanzania, we have seen that when the deliveries have started happening from Tanzania and Mozambique, there has been substantial pressure on prices for various reasons. I'll talk about those reasons going forward. But this has led to a serious challenge where the next year would the traders and the farmers in Tanzania and Mozambique would be inclined to grow pigeon pea for India or not? Because we have seen that while there has been substantial hammering of the prices of the raw material, that is pigeon pea whole, uh, but when we compare it with milled dal, there is a lag. So, the price lag between the fall of split pigeon pea and the whole pigeon pea, which is raw material, is 68%. So that would give a little bit of, I'll say, concern to those who are growing or trading or exporting from Tanzania and Mozambique pigeon pea. They might be looking for maybe some other crop which will give them better realization. While the cost of realization has been generally low in Africa, especially in Tanzania and Mozambique, but going forward, because farmer this year has expected better price, seeing what is happening of the price in typically in towards end of June, they had higher expectation, and the government of Tanzania also thought because the prices are higher, they should give more realization to the farmer, and they came up with new way of procurement, that is through the exchange. So TMZ has also led to where the cost to the buyer there, who is an exporter from there, and then additional cost of the platform itself, and then exporting to India, and where actually while the spot prices are, say for example, 80 rupees, but the forward for 2 week are booked for close to 8 or 10% lower than that price. That has created little bit of, I'll say that, uncertainty for the next year, whether the traders and the farmers there would be very keen to produce for India or not. And this is also very obvious when you see that how generally things evolves. Things very when generally, in case I am having a spot price of 100 rupees today, and when there is no new crop coming from any other region where the sowing, harvesting has been in the last phase, there are no other reason for the market to actually correct itself. So generally what you'll have is that 100 rupees plus cost of holding plus the interest cost for 1 month, in case I'm booking a forward for 1 month. But that has not happened. We have seen that actually without all these reasons, still there was a challenge, and the price were hammered. Now it is to the trade community, they understand what I'm talking about, why the prices has been low, generally for forward and not for the spot, and that also eventually impact the spot. So going forward for next 2 months, October and November, before the new crop start arriving, the demand supply gap is close to 1.85 lakh metric tons in India. The demand is estimated to be roughly 5 LMT, down 23% from demand the same period for the last year. As I said, demand destruction has happened, while supply is roughly 3.15 LMT. The availability is 1.6 LMT of Desi and zero point 0.2 LMT of Myanmar. That is what you call yellow lemon, and zero point 0.9 LMT of Mozambique, 0.45 LMT of Tanzania. Now that doesn't add up to needs are. So definitely there is a shortfall. But would that shortfall lead to increase in price? That we have to look, because the demand restriction, as I said, is attributed to 3% shift of yellow peas, 7% shift to lentils, and rest is attributed to lower consumption of pulses basket. So going forward, what I see is that the price outlook is that market might see 10% upside from current price, while 3% downside is possible if demand remains subdued. And also then the extraneous factors of when I would say that without any logic, without any supply and demand, right, prices are hammered for speculative reason, and that is very difficult for any analyst to predict when people started getting into the shorting and the longing of a specific commodity. But when we just go purely on demand and supply, you look at at least 10% upside and possibly 3% downside from here. Now, moving from Pigeon pea, which has been a pretty controversial subject most of the time, let's go to a little bit of a super commodity, which is black mape or urad or black gram. And when we see actually production, the second production estimate which we have come out at KYC, Madhya Pradesh, we are looking at it would be stagnated as what it was last year. Uttar Pradesh does a little bit better with roughly 10,000 tons of additional production, but that's very minuscule. Rajasthan is a little bit of, I'll say that, a pretty decent increase, where Rajasthan would be having more than 10% increase in the overall production. Now, talk about all India numbers, so the crop would be lower than last year by not much, but just roughly 50,000 tons. At the same time, we have seen that the crop is also now coming from not just Myanmar, because previously for black mape, Myanmar was only region where actually you could get the crop. But this time we have seen that South America, specifically Brazil, also has started producing decent amount of crop, right? 25, 30, 40,000. So we see that actually some of the crop would be coming from South America as well. While Myanmar also, we have seen that the acreage has increased. So when the acreage has increased, we believe the productivity would also be improved, because there are so far not too many reports of the black mape crop being devastated by the floods as of now. But going forward, if that news comes in, then you can see a challenge. So you'll see that availability has increased, not much, but actually I'll say that from 2.89 MMT to 2.92 MMT, which is, I'll say that, hardly any difference from what it was in the previous year. Now, when we talk about supply and demand, so if you see the carry was has substantially decreased over past 2 years. So from 2022-23, when it was roughly 3.2 LMT, last year it was 1.1 LMT, and this year it would be we start with lower than 1 LMT for carry in. Production, there has been every year there has been a dip from 2020-23 2.2 to today 2.05 is what we are. So production dip we are already seeing, and we are seeing this year the acreage has also reduced, even though there were pretty decent prices. But still, some of farmers has decided not to go overboard, just like Pigeon pea, and increase their acreage in most of the states. Import, definitely we see substantial rise in import this year, because Myanmar would be having a decent crop, and at the same time we'll also see crop coming from South America. So on the supply side, we would be better than last year, marginally, right? 10,000 tons is nothing. Similarly, consumption also would improve a little bit. Unlike last year, we would see, I'll say that between 3 to 5% increase in the consumption. Export is minimal, and ending stock, again, will be lower than what actually was last year. So this is looks like typically the supply and demand situation when it's about black mape. So as I said, Rajasthan will be doing pretty well this year, while Uttar Pradesh, Madhya Pradesh will remain very similar to the last year, and there would be sharp dip in estimates from Maharashtra. We expect a large crop from Myanmar as acreage has improved, hence import will increase to 8.2 LMT from Myanmar, and some import from Latin America close to roughly 0.5 LMT is expected. Going forward, the short duration, the variety for the current harvest season will start arriving hence. So, there is a short variety which is for 60 days, and then there is a long variety of 90 days. But initially, definitely, we would be seeing moisture also. So, but we see that towards mid of October onwards, the domestic new crop will start arriving. So, hence, overall, if you see that we don't see too much of also that upside possible. But market might see 8 to 10% correction from current prices as we start seeing the domestic crop coming in. So I would suggest that Black Maple look at it because there would be a small upside which is possible in the festive season, which could happen to any commodity. It might be also true for Black Maple. But eventually, once the domestic crop starts arriving, especially the short duration crop, and this time we have seen that actually a lot of farmers have grown a short duration variety. So which typically matures in 60 to 70, 75 days. So you'll find that those crop coming in a little bit early. And again, there has not been much damage to the crop in the major regions. So as you are aware that Madhya Pradesh, Uttar Pradesh, and Rajasthan, they have a lion's share when it comes to the acreage of like Mape. There, in fact, the weather has been kind and there has not been the type of rain which could damage substantially the crop. So I don't see any challenges because of the weather in the Black Mape growing regions. So you might be seeing like little bit pressure on the prices going forward for Black Mape or Urad. Now coming to elephant in the room, while chickpeas we have taken it because there has been a lot of talk about it. There have been push for whether they should be opening up imports of Kabuli or should yellow peas have been the like I said substitute for chickpeas or not. So there have been a lot of talk and a lot of buzz around chickpeas, and definitely chickpeas is one of the largest pulses commodity in the whole of the basket, and this makes it important. But at the same time, as you know, that actually it's a crop which is sown in Rabi season, so there are no numbers coming for the state which state is producing what. But we would definitely would like to touch upon the overall supply and demand situation of chickpeas. So if you see chickpeas, the productivity this year was pretty low, from roughly 10.3 MMT, which we have predicted for estimated for 22-23. For 23-24, it has was 9.4. We see a substantial increase going forward in the productivity this year. Now you would say that actually when we don't even know actually what is the acreage, whether farmers will be growing it or not, how can you come with the number? So our estimation is based on two principles. One is that because of the high price and high moisture, right, we would see more and more farmers would be interested in growing up chickpeas because one they see high price and secondly they see that their farms are good enough to have better than previous yields. So hence we believe there would be increase of close to 10% of acreage and also 3% increase in yield because as I said there would be better moisture because of the type of monsoon we are having. In fact, we are still having rain in some of the catchment area where chickpeas are grown. Only concern here could be that if the La Nina kicks in and we have rainfall even going uh, to mid of October or towards end of October, then it could be constrained because actually you cannot do the sowing of chickpeas when actually you are having very very high moisture or water logging in the farms, and they need actually 5 or 6 days of sunshine so that farm dry to the level where actually sowing becomes possible. So if that doesn't happen, we see high acreage and we see that good productivity. So if you see the demand and supply challenges, so let's talk about first 23-24, which is we are already towards the end of it. So we had seen that the supply was roughly 10.89 million metric ton, while the consumption was 10.61. Now, this consumption of 10.61 is based on the demand destruction which has happened because of substitution. So if you see that consumption for the 22-23 was close to 11.79 million metric ton. Now this year it has tapered down to 10.61 million metric ton, and majority of that substitution has happened again for the two reasons. One could be the substitution of yellow peas for specifically in basin, and or little bit of demand destruction. People would have actually not had I would say that their chana dal in some of the savories they are eating. Now 23, 24, 25, we believe as the crop would be good, right? And then government has also opened the imports till March 2025. So we see that a substantial import coming from Australia. Now with that in mind, we are having a pretty decent supply of 11.26 million metric ton for 24-25 marketing season. And the consumption would be roughly 10.61. What we believe that we have kept the consumption to the previous year because once the people have switched to the substituting chickpeas or desi chana with yellow peas, they are not gonna, I'll say, that turn back soon, right? So because the taste patterns, they don't, you cannot just switch on and switch off. So those who have taken a step where they are substituting 10% of desi chana in their besan with yellow peas, they might not be again moving back to 100% desi chana, irrespective of the availability. And definitely there would be price arbitrage for sure. Uh, Yellow peas will always be cheaper than chana in foreseeable future. So when we see that typically ending stock, we believe there would be close to 4.8 LMT of ending stock in 24-25, while we would be starting with 1.1 LMT of carryover in 24-25 marketing season. Now let's understand what are some key points which are impacting the market. So one thing is for sure that the arrival of next domestic crop is still 5 years down the line, and the current supply situation is very tight. Further, we have seen that the prospective large volume importers are not expected before November from Australia. One of the reasons is that we know that there are also some logistical issues, the challenges around the shipping and all that. And Australia is not Myanmar, right? Where actually within span of very short time you can get the imports. So there are challenges of logistic, and the crop size in Australia definitely is very large, and it is estimated at 1.3 MMT, which might see 5 LMT getting exported to India. But will they come before the peak demand, which is in festive season? The answer is no. So most of the Australian chickpeas you will be only getting post, right, the festive demand end. But after festive demands in India, you also have a lot of marriages, and in the marriages the basin is consumed extensively. So we won't say that actually the demand will just evaporate after Chhath, right, which is I think 5th of November. There would still be some demand, but the demand would not be to the level where actually it would be equivalent to what it would be in October. So when we see that demand, we are looking at for next 3 months, close to 2.2 million metric ton, right? And availability is hardly 1.4 MMT. So there is shortfall of 8 MMT, sorry, LMT. So with 8 lakh metric ton shortage, do we see something happening where you can substitute chana with something? Unfortunately, all the options are exhausted, right? Tanzanian crop is of no significance, 1.1, 1.2 LMT, right? Is not making any sense at all, right? It is not making sense for a very simple reason that uh, the type of deficit we are having for 3 months, right? It is not even close to 15% of that, right? We have very little coming from Tanzania. Secondly, the TMX has kicked in, which has made I would say procurement and the process of exporting all the way to India a little bit of complexity. Now, also, as I said, this 8 LMT, right, cannot be substituted by anything else because whatever substitution was supposed to happen with the yellow pea has already happened. So only way is that actually would we see more substitution of yellow peas or we would see the demand destruction? That is the only two things. Now you cannot get any kabuli, right? And this is impossible, right? To get it before the, I'll say, festive season. So opening up of any of imports of kabuli or anything, I think all those discussion is now of no use. Only thing we have to see is that actually would government even extend the YP free import post their expiry, in December. So based on that, we would see that where the price move. But overall, if I say as far as the price outlook is concerned, I see it might see 6 to 8% upward correction from current prices, while downside doesn't look like a possibility. For the DCP price rise might give push to the yellow pea price as well. So we are seeing that yellow pea price has been pretty low. But if the desi chickpea picks up and we see the substitution also happening, which as I said already, we are 8 LMT short, you might see yellow peas also improving just because of I'll say that impact of DCP. So now coming to red lentils. Now red lentils again, as I said, there is no harvest possible. It's not a kharif crop; it's a rabi crop. So we are just talking about supply and demand, and we are not going to advise how it could pan out. So we are looking at in production would be better than the previous year. Here we are seeing that acreage might not increase because the prices has been below MSP for most of the season, and the government might further increase MSP. Now, would farmer be interested in not getting the I'll say that decent price? because even the procurement of red lentils or masoor this year by the government was not big. Whether we talk about in Madhya Pradesh or Uttar Pradesh, we have not seen like too much of procurement. So with subdued price, the government not picking up crop at MSP, would the farmer be interested in like increasing acreage? Answer seems to be no. But because of the good moisture available, specifically in MP and UP, right, we see yield might increase by 3%, right? So based on that assumption, like we are looking at production of close to 1.61 MMT, which is better than previous year 1.56 MMT, which we have estimated. Imports this year we had too much of imports of red lentils. Going forward, I think like the parity and the market condition or market dynamics would lead to far lower imports than previous year, because we are already sitting with a lot of surpluses, and with the government also having a pretty decent amount of stock, and they might also look for liquidating that. We don't see that like there would be possibility of having to, but still like we are talking about 8 LMT of import. Consumption side, we are not seeing too much of changes, because this year itself, as I said, like pigeon pea was substituted specifically in dal by masoor or the red lentils. So going forward next year, I think like the consumption pattern might remain the same. So overall ending stock would be lower than this year, because we see that government might be liquidating some of what it is having as like in form of Bharat Dal. So what are the key points impacting the market? So first of all, there is a good supply situation with ample stock and good crop expected from Canada and Australia, both jointly having potential to export 3 MMT of red lentils. Factor supporting price is the fact that some pigeon pea demand is getting substituted by red lentils. If that would have not happened, you would have seen the blood on the street and the prices would have crashed severely. But we see that like there is a possibility where a lot of the split pigeon pea or tuar dal has been substituted by masoor as well. And this is why which is keeping the prices little bit, I'll say it's at the levels which it is currently. Concerns of more import leading to pressure on domestic price are also seen. While we see that like the price increase in the origin could be short-lived, right? We are seeing that there is certain improvement in the prices in the like origin, specifically Canada. I believe like there is always a possibility that government might impose import restriction in case like they see that the prices are not good enough for like incentivizing farmer to sow more masoor. So you might see that also a possibility. It is very difficult to predict this government, and we have seen that like it's always a challenge, because like how the decision are taken, it's very difficult to like able to put logic behind that. But definitely they have been able to control prices. So I said that at least one box is getting ticked. So, but you never know actually, like just like what they did for edible oil and soybean, right? They might be I'll say that inclined to like also ensure that put some restriction of import of lentils to support Indian farmer. You might also see like there is a possibility of like government increasing the MSP. Roughly what we are hearing from hearsay is that there could be increase of 5 to 6%. And when you say 5 to 6%, then it seems like it could support domestic price a little bit. So like if government increase by 5 to 6% the MSP, you might see a little bit of upward movement, but that's all, like not anything more than that. So if you see the price outlook for lentils, like the market might remain range bound till swing starts. And if government start liquidating the current stock, then it could be possible that we might see a downward correction of up to 10% from current prices. While upside doesn't look like a possibility, except if MSP is increased, then we might see a little bit of upside. Other than that, we don't see too much of upside. And with that, actually, like we have covered these four crops, and I believe like it would have been interested conversation, and definitely like I would thank all of you to join this conversation. We are open to some of the questions. If any of you want to like put it on the chat window, we can do that. And you can also speak out. You can unmute yourself, and now you can actually definitely interact if anybody is interested. Or we can call pause to the session, and I can just give a thank you note.
Hi Deepak ji, this is Tanmay. I am audible.
Yes, Tanmay, you are audible. Thank you.
Well, sir, it was a very nice session from your side. Sir, just one query I have regarding order. The S&D table which you have shown, uh, in the production side, you have considered only the Kharif estimates. While Rabi and summer production was not considered in that particular S&D. So I think it should be included in the S&D because it will then only it will give the entire picture of the supply demand dynamics for the country, sir. That was just a
No,
small
no,
side.
no, point taken, Tanmay. Definitely,
And
yes.
secondly, sir, the rainfall activity which is going on over the central India, eastern part of Rajasthan, and few parts of this Bundelkhand region, along with the Maharashtra. So there are reports of damages in urad crop. So I think the production estimates is a bit little overestimated in my view only.
No, that's a possible say. What I said, the Bundelkhand and Rajasthan, the phenomena is just happening, right? There is a hearsay, generally we start because that's why I said it's a second estimate, right? So once we see that total, I'll say that reversal of the monsoon, we would again be doing one more estimate because currently, we don't have any number to suggest actually how much, what is the extent. For a tour, definitely we already have a very clear understanding. I was in Karnataka, I got the number. I have engagement and discussion with even the government official in Karnataka to find out what is the number. Same way, actually, I was in having discussion with the government official in Maharashtra to understand the type of losses we are doing. So it is we are in stage of identifying what are exactly being the losses. But the urad growing region, still I would say that we have not being able to go to the level where actually we can predict because it's happening now. So maybe like next estimate we'll revise it once we understand exactly how much the losses are there.
Yeah. Actually, Deepakji, I joined little late, so I missed the tour estimate part and the S&D part. So I'm not able to comment on that part. But this is what the observation on the Udat side, which I feel I should discuss with you. Thank
No,
you,
no, sure,
Deepakji.
sure, Tanvi. Thanks a lot.
Hi Deepakji, this is Tanay.
Yeah, hi, Tanay.
Actually, I also sort of agree with Tanmay. I was a little late. Can we just run through those S&D slides for Tur Dal on a quick note?
Okay, so tour you want me to again present? Is it?
Yes, sir. It will be very helpful.
Yeah, sure, why not? Yeah. You want the state one, the production side, or you want the complete SND? So I've shared this SND.
Could you go back to the previous slide as well?
Yeah. Tarun, you have also asked the question that that Australia has revised from 1.7 MMT to 1.2 MMT. Such a drastic changes. Just see it in the percentage terms, right? It is very difficult to digest. So until unless we have some discussion with people on the ground, I would not be changing my estimate for Australia as of now for sure, right? And whether such manipulation would pick price in India or not, that's there is a jury out. There have been a lot of I'll say that speculative trade happening in India in majority of pulses, which I believe is not healthy for the market. But I don't want to become another part of that. And this is where actually until unless we have on the ground information from Australia, I would like to still believe it is 1.7 MMT, and I don't see too much of changes happening there. Canada and Australia numbers, they have been they've been doing it for pretty long, the revised number in a big deltas, right? Which is unnerving. So until unless we have some discussion on the ground with the people there, and maybe look at some remote sensing images it is very difficult. Like, once we understand the NDVI and the complete time series data of that, whether it has fallen to this level or not, it's very difficult to comment on now. Maybe next estimate, third estimate, which we typically would be doing towards the end of November, we might be again, like, coming back on those numbers. Perfect. So I think no more questions are coming. So with that, I would like to thank all of you for being part of this, I'll say that, a short session, right? And this is what we'll be doing more in future. And just like we do our roundtables, I believe such analyst reviews are also important. With that, I would like to thank all of you. Thanks a lot for your time. Have a great day. Looking forward to see you soon again in November.